We have the AWS CLI installed, and we also have AWS DynamoDB installed locally, and we should be able to then ask the local database instance to say, what do I have available to me? Which data is available to me? So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go out to a terminal. I'm going to say AWS DynamoDB list tables, and then the tables I want to list are on the local machine. So I'm going to give an endpoint URL of http localhost :8000. And I should see all the tables that are installed on the local machine. And you'll see right now, it gives me a JSON object back, and it tells me that there are no tables. It tells me the table names is equal to an empty collection. There are no tables. Okay, so that's the first command. What I want to do is I want to install a table. I want to create a table, and that create table syntax is fairly cumbersome. So what I want to do is I want to go out to Blackboard, and I have an SQL statement, this create local table.txt. And one thing I'll note about this create table.txt is you'll notice it's using the AWS2 command line interface. So I want to make sure that I'm going to change that. So I'm going to open up a new file, and I really just want AWS. I'm going to copy that command and bring it over to my terminal, and I'm going to issue that command to create a new table. And you'll notice I get confirmation saying, yes, that's fine, you created that new local database table. Okay, so I have a new local database table, and the way I can prove that to you is if I hit the up arrow, I should be able to list the tables again, and now I should see that new database table. Okay, so now you'll notice that my table names is no longer an empty collection, it's a collection that has one table name, baseball stats local. Okay, so now that that's there, what I want to do is I want to take and load it with some data. Okay, so when we initially started, we had these files, games.json, players.json, teams.json. We updated the database table name. Okay, and essentially what we want to do is we want to import those records into our database. Okay, so the way we're going to do that is we're going to navigate to that directory. So right now they're on my desktop in that folder 0202. So I'm going to navigate to my desktop, and then there's a folder 0202. So if I print the directory contents using an ls command, since I'm on a Mac as opposed to a dir command if I was on Windows, I have access to those files. And what I want to do is I want to say AWS DynamoDB batch write item, and the item that I want to grab is from a file, so my request items are going to be from a file name. So file : // and now my file name games.json. And in order for this to work, I have to run it against my local database. So again, my endpoint URL is going to be pointing at my local database. Okay, so it looks like that was successful. We can do the same thing, so I'm just hitting the up arrow, but instead of games.json, I'm going to use players.json. And then finally, I can use teams.json, and I should have all of my data imported. Okay, so I've ran those 3 import commands, and now I want to verify that I actually have data. So the easiest way to verify that I have data is I should be able to scan that particular table. So AWS DynamoDB Scan. I have to specify the table name, and the table name is baseball stats local. And then I also have to specify that I'm working on my local machine, so this endpoint URL again is going to be localhost :8000. Okay, and if I hit enter, I'm just holding down the enter key, eventually we'll get to the end of the list, and just because I've done this a few times already, I know that there's 23 records, so when I hit the end, you'll notice that I get to this count 23, I scan 23. The consume capacity, I didn't select the consume capacity, so it's showing as null. But trust me, the read count is going to be 23 on that if I was actually looking for the consume capacity. Meaning I use 23 read units and I look through the entire table. Ideally, what would happen is I would be able to get more granular about what I'm selecting. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to select just a particular team. Okay, so I'm looking for essentially a query that's going to allow me to say I just want the teams where the team name is the Los Angeles Angels. And I could choose any of these teams. So I could choose the Yankees, I could choose Seattle, I could choose Oakland. So I could use team info, New York Yankees. Let's do the Dodgers. They're kind of in the news right now. So what I want to do is I want to write a query where I only get the team info where the team is the LA Dodgers. Okay, so where the team ID is equal to team info underscore LAD. Okay, so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to use AWS DynamoDB, and then I want to query the table, so baseball stats local, and the key condition expression that I want is I want to say where the team ID is equal to some parameter named :t. Okay. The :t is really just I'm creating a parameter name. So team ID is equal to some parameter, and the parameter name is equal to :t. I have to then give the value of that parameter, and the way I do that is in the expression attribute values. So the expression attribute values are going to be, so I want to say that this variable :t is equal to some object that is a string that has a value of team info underscore LAD. Okay, so I have my variable, my parameter, which is :t. The value of that parameter is of type string, and specifically that string is going to be team info underscore LAD. Okay, then lastly we have to say that we're querying our local database, so our endpoint URL is equal to this http : localhost : 8000. Okay, it looks like I have an error, a parse error near my ending curly brace. Part of me thinks that these parameters need to be in single quotes. They've kind of changed the structure of how they want these parameters. So if I put single quotes around it, then it finally gives me the answer that I'm looking for, which is to say that I have a collection of items, and my collection of items has exactly one item. So you'll notice the count is 1, the scanned count is 1. So we're able to query that local database to get data out that we care about. We can either scan the entire table, or we can query specifically based on a team ID. Okay, and we'll look at all sorts of different queries that we can use kind of going forward. Okay, so this is the point I want to be at. I want to have a local copy of DynamoDB installed. In order to do that, I have the AWS CLI first. It's configured. Then I install DynamoDB locally. Once I've installed DynamoDB locally, then I can create my table. Okay, and there's syntax for that. That's actually fairly complicated. And then once I've created my table, I'm ready to go. My application's all set. I import my seed data, and then I can either scan or query from that seed data. Okay, and that's really what we accomplished here.